Hi, my name is Gabriel Meissner, and this is a report for RPTV News. RPTV recently conducted an interview with Gaetan of the 230 FightBack Group, bringing attention to the urgent need for social housing at 214-230 Sherbourne Street, situated at the epicenter of Toronto's housing crisis. Gaetan delves into the significance of the site and condemns its continued vacancy while residents suffer on the streets. He outlines the group's actions against corporate greed and governmental indifference, stressing the importance of community support in their fight for housing justice. He stressed the importance of community support in their fight for housing justice and invited residents to join the upcoming rally and march on June 15, 2024. Stay tuned for updates on this crucial issue.
My name is Gaetan Heroux. I've actually worked and organized in the Dundas and Sherbourne area since late 1980s and around issues of overcrowding in shelters, housing, a whole bunch of issues, policing issues. And about a year and a half ago, myself and a bunch of ex-OCAP people, Ontario Coalition Against Poverty, formed a group called 230 FightBack. And the group was created as a result of information that we got that KingSett Capital, who own a piece of property at 214-230 Sherbourne, which they bought in March of 2022, were planning to build a 47-story tower, condo tower on the site. And the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty prior to that had a campaign to get the city to either buy or expropriate the property, going back a decade. And it was a big fight. Almost won. City actually bid to buy the property, where they were outbid by KingSett Capital. So the fight that we're having right now is around stopping the condo development from being built on the site, and also pressuring the city, Mayor Chow in particular, and the Councillor Moyse also in particular, because he's the councillor here, to negotiate to buy back the property. And I can get into more details in terms of where things are at with that. But that was originally our when we first formed about a year and a half ago. Where we were at is that they were going to build a condo. KingSett was going to build a condo, so we had a mammoth fight on our hands, and we knew that. And a year and a half later, there's been some interesting developments that have happened. $214-230 is important one historically. So just people just give you a little history of the site. Prior to KingSett buying the property, it was owned by a family called the Teninjas. They bought 3 rooming houses on the site between 1986 and 1996. And one of the houses that is still standing right now, hasn't been torn down, was a rooming house way back in 1911. So the site had, a long history of housing low-income people. And just so people know, that the Dundas and Sherbourne and Downtown East is one of the oldest working-class community in Toronto. So the Teninjas bought the properties. By 2008, the houses were boarded up. The Teninjas paid $850,000 during that decade for those properties, for those 3 rooming houses, and the lot sat empty for a number of years. And you have to understand that we're at Dundas and Sherbourne here. We're an epicenter of the housing crisis. We have thousands of shelter beds around. We have services around here. We have food banks. We have soup kitchens. We have all kinds of stuff here. People are having a hard time, and they need housing. And here we have this empty lot that's been sitting by this summer. It'll be 16 years that it's sat empty, and we found that was criminal, and we were putting up a fight for that. So the Ninjas don't want to sell to the city. At some point, the city tries to buy. They refuse. The city refuses to expropriate. And as a result of that, KingSett gets their hands on the property. So, and by the way, KingSett Capital paid $53 million for that site. And why is that particular site important? Because for us, it's the line in the sand. If they build that condo at that corner, we feel that we will lose the corner and we'll lose the whole area. If you were to walk along the Dundas corridor, going west to Church Street, you would see another 10 condo developments. Some of them are completed, 2 or 3 are completed, but there's another 7 in the process. I think they're talking about 6,000 plus condos along that corridor, and 24 units of affordable housing. So the neighborhood is being gentrified in a way that people can no longer afford to live here. So for us, then the 230 has become a significant part of this fight of stopping the development dead at that corner. And the last thing I'll say also is 230 also, the city, the reason the city wanted to buy the property was because it was tied to the redevelopment of Gaetan Heroux, which is a project that was built, I forget how long ago, at least 40, 50 years ago, just a little north of Dundas on the east side. So they have to redevelop that. So the idea was, buy the property at 230, develop it, move people, to the site, to the new 230, redevelop. Because otherwise, as people in Regent Park know, once they start tearing down a building, people are displaced, right? And they move in areas that they don't know. So you want to avoid that at all costs. Like the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty, because we're all most of us were ex-OCAP people, we use direct action. So we'll go directly to where the people make decisions. So over the last year and a half, we've written a number of articles around what's going on, about the history of the place, and then we also went directly to the Scotia Plaza, which is where KingSett has its main office, its head office on the 37th floor. So we've gone that a number of times to demand that they give back this property. We also, in terms of, we went to the Royal York. And the reason we were going to Scotia Plaza in Royal York also is because a guy named John Love, who's the CEO of KingSett Capital, they own, I think, 60% of the Royal York, and they own, I think, most of the Scotia Plaza. This is KingSett Capital is a private equity company that has $19 billion in its portfolio. This is a huge, 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 huge company, and they're part of Bay Street. So if you want to kind of envision what's happening, is Bay Street has come to Dundas and Sherbourne, and there are billions of dollars being spent along the corridor there, just along that small corridor from Sherbourne to Church. I think I calculated to $3 to $4 billion alone, just in that little stretch that is being invested by Bay Street, because KingSett is a Bay Street, based company. The lawyers they used are based in Bay Street. When you look up some of the names and do some research, you'll find them. So, and just the most recent action we did, we went over to around KingSett. I'll talk about the city in a second. The most recent action we did around KingSett is yesterday we went and picketed one of their construction site over on St. Clair. So KingSett is buying property all around the city, and primarily in low-income areas. So they're buying property in Chinatown, they're buying property in the Church and Wellesley area, they're buying properties in Parkdale, and they're buying property in St. Clair. $1.6 million per condo they're asking. This is St. Clair and Oakwood. I don't know if people know the city at all. This is not a wealthy area. It's got a whole bunch of different people living there. So we've been taking on KingSett Capital. Oh, the other thing also, we had a really, really good action because John Love, who was the CEO of KingSett Capital, was receiving an award for Businessman of the Year or something like that at the Royal York. They had a gala. They were charging $25,000 per table to attend that gala. So we went and picketed that gala. I think we had about 70 people, and we had a really good event to say again, this is who this guy is. Stay out of a neighborhood, hands off, poor people's neighborhood. In terms of the city, we've had a number of meetings with Chris Moyes, We've also, for a long time, we tried to meet with the mayor's office. We had a hard time. took us, but eventually we did on January 25th of this year. We did it finally after occupying the front lobby for about 3 hours. We did get a meeting with two of our head staff. Olivia Chow, Mayor Chow still hasn't met with us. And at that point in time, we found out information that we thought was going on, but we hadn't heard about. But what we were told is that the city had been in negotiations with KingSett to buy the property for the last 6 months. Since the beginning, since Olivia Chow got in power, but according to Chris Moyse, he had been trying to do that before. We also had received a couple months earlier an email from a guy named Bill Logar, who's a big wig in KingSett, saying, "Hey, by the way, we've offered the property of the city. We know how important this piece of property is to you, and we're trying to make a deal with them. We're waiting for a response." So this is where we're at right now, where apparently there's some negotiations going on. And the last thing I want to say also, in terms of how we organize, we primarily poster in the neighborhood, right, with social media. But if you were to walk down the street, you'd see posters around the June 15th action. So one of the ways that we've historically organized in the neighborhood to let everyone know what's going on, and including the demonstration that's going to happen on June 15th, is to poster the area. So right now, we're in a situation where, for lack of a better word, not much is going on because they can't agree on a price. So one of the posters you'll see in the neighborhood is they can't agree on the price, and there's a picture of Olivia Chow and the picture of KingSett bigwig, and saying, you can't agree on a price, and this is like a major crisis at the epicenter of the housing crisis that's been going on for a decade. So we want you to take action. So our role is to put pressure on the politicians, Moyse and Olivia Chow, and on KingSett Capital to come to the table. And just so people know, KingSett Capital does business with the city. They're developing a site at 705 Warden Street. So they get money from the city to develop that. They bought a building in 2021, 877 Yonge, from KingSett Capital. They paid almost $72 million for it. And just recently, at the beginning of the year, they gave KingSett Capital almost $10 million in tax incentive to develop, to help build some housing in the West End. They know each other. These people do business every day. And from the beginning, from the get-go, we said, why did KingSett Capital bid against the city in March of 2022, knowing that the city wanted to build social housing on that site? And we're really pissed off with them. We're really angry with them. And now they've created the situation where they want to recoup their money. The city said they don't want to pay it back. So something's going to have to give. Something's going to break. Our message is clear. There's no condo tower that will be going up at 214, 230. That message is a clear message, and we'll continue to fight to make sure that doesn't happen. Ultimately, what we want is social housing on the site. So the city has put out a plan, came out in 2018, a 5-year plan around the downtown east, but also specifically around Dundas and Sherbourne. And the plan basically said that they want to redevelop Dan Harrison, and 214, 230 is instrumental in doing that. So that was the plan. But then what happened is by the end, after KingSett bought the property in March of 2022. When you look at the report that came out that summer of 2022, 214, 230 was no longer part of the plan. It disappeared. And so the effect that has had on is the fact is that we still don't have social housing at 214, 230, and it's made it difficult for the city to figure out how to redevelop the Dan Harrison, without displacing, I don't know how many people are there. I think there's 318 units that they, without displacing those people. Most of those people there, like people in Regent Park, would be tied to the services. They need to be where they live because this is where Regent Park Community Health Center is. There's lots of food banks here. All that stuff there. If they're on social assistance, the offices are here. So it's really, really important that the housing be built there. And also what it's done, it's done great harm. 16 years, that this place has remained empty. And anyone who's been around Dundas and Sherbourne can see how the destitution that the people are living in and the misery that they're living, and the city's unwillingness or indecisions around even expropriating when they should have, has caused great harm. KingSett Capital's plans to build a condo on that site, will cause great harm. Will displace hundreds of people. So we want to stop that. We have to stop that. We have no choice. It also has an effect on the services in the area. Once you begin to remove, so I remember, when I worked, I came in '88 to Dundas and Sherbourne, and I remember I knew people who lived in those houses, and all those people used the services in the area. They went across the church in the back, Fred Victor. There was a meal program, street health was there, Regent Park. So all of that is connected. So when you put a condo tower here, and I imagine there are services in the area right now, what's going on in Regent Park, that services who are having to make decisions, because anyone looking around right now can see that there's been a major change in Regent Park right now. This is not the Regent Park that I first, when I first came in '88 that I know. The working class element of this, for me, has disappeared. And with that, will be the services. When you bring this kind of development, whether it's here or Dundas and Sherbourne, then it will have a major effect on the community. I just want one thing to really stress. So, one can debate, in terms of Regent Park, whether it was good for people or bad people. I have my own views on it. I mean, I thought those buildings were quite okay. Had they maintained them, they wouldn't have to tear them down. But that's why. But what's happened as a result of that, when they redeveloped Regent Park beginning in 2005 and made their plans and are continuing behind us, we see that there's still a couple more phases. When they did that, they opened up the whole corridor to developers. So if you walk through 4 or 5 blocks in the Dundas Sherbourne area, all of these properties around Regent Park right now are worth millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars to developers. And as we speak, developers are buying up these properties. We're focusing on just one stretch, or one corner right now, 214, 230 Sherbourne, which is just north of Dundas, on the west side. But if you were to walk through the neighborhood, and I look around and there's a little, I don't know if people, I just had a shawarma the other day at this nice little cheap restaurant across from Fresco. But you look at that little plaza that's there. Well, I don't know if you call it a plaza. That little row of houses and businesses and stuff. That property now, like the Teninjas paid $850,000. KingSett paid $53 million. That property there across the street from Fresco is probably worth $100 million now. And that's what's happening. This is the danger of allowing developers and speculators to lead the city's housing policy. What we need is, and everyone understands this, is we need, at all 3 levels of government, we need a policy that ensures that every single municipalities have rent-geared income housing to house its people. Whether it's for workers, whether it's for people who are on social assistance, whether it's for seniors, it's absolutely necessary that we do that. And because none of the councillors, and I mean none, are willing to take on the developers in this in the Dundas, well, across the city. We're left with a situation where the developers like KingSett Capital, Pembroke, Menkez, who are all in the neighborhood, dictate the housing policies, the kind of housing that is going to be here. And it should be the other way around. So it's really, really important for us to begin to take that on. And now there are pockets like in Parkdale that's trying to fight that. There are pockets in Chinatown. Friends of Chinatown Toronto are organizing around that kind of stuff. There are groups in the Wellesley Church in Wellesley organizing around trying to stop KingSett from developing. There's a wonderful group called No Dem Eviction that is working around people like KingSett who are buying up old apartment buildings. So 135 Isabella has 80 units in it. So those people there have been given an eviction notice, and now they're having to think about where to go. I mean, in this fight that we've been having so far, the very, very first thing I started to research was KingSett. What I found was that KingSett in the summer of 2019 was involved in the eviction of 150 seniors at 877 Yonge. You can find, if you go KingSett 877 Yonge, you'll see the whole story. It was just brutal. And most of the people that lived there were 9 years old. They were told in the space of a few months they had to leave, and KingSett was going to redevelop along with this other developer. And I met a woman named, her last name is Robinson, and I met her last year, and she was one of those seniors, and she refused to leave. I just want to end with the story, if you don't mind. So she refused to leave. When I met her, she was 101 years old. So go back to summer of 1999, all the seniors are forced to leave. Politicians can't do anything. And then she refused to leave. She remained in the building until the city bought the building. So for a year and a half during COVID, this is like when COVID was going on, she lived in a 14th floor apartment building that I think had 200 units in it by herself. Her daughter lived across the street with support her. There was security at the bottom. So this huge empty building, about half the size of the one that would be over there. And she lived in there. And she refused to. And when the city bought the building, she lived in the building. She was still there. And she lives there today on the 14th floor. If you were to go to the 14th floor, ask for, I think it's Betty Robinson, you would find her there. I think she'd be, maybe 102 now. And I remember, thinking, how powerful that image of this 101-year-old woman, refusing to leave and going, listen, if this person at 101 can fight like this, surely a young person like me at 69 can do the same. So, but it was a very inspiring story, and at the same time a very disturbing story. And I don't know if people have watched the news lately, but the same thing has just happened in Mississauga, where an old age home is people have been told they're going to get evicted, and it's the same kind of scenario. So we have to create a movement that will fight for housing, that will protect, seniors, students, low-income people, people on social assistance, and make sure that we have a right to the city. There's a kind of a global movement that calls the right to city, and we have a right to transportation. We have a right to housing. We have a right to work in these cities, and it's important for us to make sure that at some period somehow. We begin to look at what's going on around us and say, this has to change. And by the way, and there are movements in Europe, large movements that are beginning to fight some of this stuff. This summer on June 15th, we're organizing another large rally, and we're gathering in Allen Gardens. We're going to march over to 230. Our intention is to feed people. We're going to have live music, and we're going to have various organizations from across the city come and speak about what they're experiencing in their own communities. And obviously one of the main demands is for us is that 214, 230 Sherbourne, that the city buy the property and build social housing on it. But outside of that, there are also groups like No Dumb Evictions who are organizing to make sure that they're arguing that there should be no dumb evictions, that these buildings should not be bought up by developers. And there's also rent controls issues. People have been watching the rent strikes that have been going on around the city. Those are all huge issue, but in the end, the large demand that we all agree would begin to address this issue is, and that's not just in Toronto. It's not just like in large urban centers like Toronto, but it's in Peterborough, it's in Hamilton, it's in Windsor, it's across Canada. Is that the federal government in particular, but also the provincial government and the cities, we have to have a program, a national program, like we had after the Second World War. From the Second World War onward till about the 1970s, early 1980s, they were building social housing. And we need to return to that and have a massive program that would involve every municipality receiving funds to build rent-geared income housing that would protect all of us. Because we're at Dundas and Sherbourne, and sometimes we talk about homelessness, because there's a lot of homelessness and it's very visible. But we're all in danger with the policies that exist right now around housing. And without a national policy that begins to address, build housing, where each municipality can build housing for its people, we're done for. We're in trouble. Similarly around the healthcare, similarly around the employment insurance, welfare rates. All those issues are tied. And some of the research I did, around the Great Depression in the 1930s, people had none of that. No unemployment insurance. They called it relief at the time. No large housing policies. They just didn't exist. And they fought for that. And after the Second World War, they began to address some of those issues. And I feel that I owe those people something. I know I owe those people something. And I know that if we don't protect, and today, we have the environment, right, which is an issue, a huge issue. That when I grew up was there, but not in the way it is now. So all of those issues are the responsibility of the government in the end, but really, at the end, it's us that we're and we might have to fight, community by community, but it resonates. People begin to hear, that there's resistance here, there's resistance there. We get to talk to each other, right? And by doing that, and June 15th is a rally. We're going to feed each other. We're going to listen to music, but it's that attempt again to bring everyone together, and saying this is what we're experiencing. And holding the city accountable on all of those issues, and particularly around housing, but shelter conditions are outrageous. I mean, that's the plan. It's to continue to build a movement that, like I'm 69 years old right now. Old, but we live. My wife and I live in a co-op, and without the co-op, we couldn't live in the city. My friend Barrick German lives in Toronto housing. Without that housing, he couldn't live here. So several of the people that are in 230 FightBack, are able to live in the city because of what happened before them. And I'll just finish here. There's the history of Dundas and Sherbourne. In the 1970s, there were councillors that were taking on developers, where John Sewell, Dan Lucky, I think at some point even Jack Layton, who were taking on these developers. And it was important that happened. But today there's a vacuum at City Council, and it's our job to hold them accountable. Yeah.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also follow us on social media, and for more information, check out our website.
you.